If you've never tried to get a 6-year-old ready for school while living in a family shelter, let me save you the trouble. It's like running a small airport where every passenger is emotional, the security line is shame, and you're doing it all with one sock missing. That morning, it was the sock with stars on it. "Mom," my daughter whispered, holding up 2 socks like evidence in a courtroom. "One pink, one gray. Is this okay?" I stared at them longer than necessary. "It's a bold fashion choice," I said, very confident. She smiled, that quiet, gentle smile kids give when they're trying to help you stay okay. And for half a second, I forgot where we were. Then the metal door behind us opened, and the cold slapped me back into reality. We were standing outside Ridgeway Family Shelter at 6:14 a.m. The sky was bruised gray. The sidewalk was wet. The air smelled like winter and disinfectant. My daughter adjusted her backpack, which was almost bigger than she was. I zipped her coat up to her chin and deliberately avoided looking at the sign above the door. Family shelter. It wasn't the word shelter that hurt. It was family. Like we were a category. Like we belonged in a labeled box. "Okay," I said, forcing cheer into my voice. "Bus comes in 4 minutes." She nodded. She was brave in a way that made my chest ache. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading all week. "Do I still have to say my address when Mrs. Harper asks?" My stomach clenched. "I don't think she'll ask today," I said quickly. She didn't argue. She just looked down at her shoes, then back up at me, studying my face like she was checking whether I was still me. "Mom." "Yeah, sweetheart. Are we going to move again?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. That was when the black sedan pulled up. Slow. Silent. Out of place. Not a rideshare, not a taxi, not the kind of car that ever stopped outside Ridgeway unless it was lost and regretted it. The engine purred like it belonged somewhere else. The rear door opened, and the woman who stepped out looked like she'd walked straight out of another world. Tailored coat, perfect posture, hair untouched by wind or worry. Margaret Hale, my grandmother. I hadn't seen her in over a year. I knew that because my life had been divided into before everything collapsed and after. She belonged firmly in before. Her eyes found me first. Recognition. Confusion. Then they dropped to my daughter. Something cracked in her expression. Not sadness. Shock. She glanced up at the shelter sign, then back at me. "Claire," she said slowly, like she hadn't spoken my name in a long time. "What are you doing here?" My first instinct was to lie. Not because I thought she'd judge me. Because being seen felt unbearable. "I'm fine," I said automatically. "We're okay, it's temporary." Her gaze moved to my daughter's mismatched socks. Then to my hands, red, dry, cracked from cold, sanitizer, and trying to hold a life together. Her voice lowered. "Claire," she said again. "Why aren't you living in your house on Willow Lane?" The world tilted. I blinked. My what? She didn't repeat herself like she thought I was stupid. She repeated herself like she thought I might collapse. "The house," she said carefully. "On Willow Lane." My heart slammed so hard I could feel it in my throat. "What house?" I asked. "I don't have a house." Silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. My daughter tugged my sleeve. "Mom," she whispered. "Do we have a house?" I looked down at her hopeful face. "No, baby," I said gently. "We don't." Margaret went very still. They didn't just judge her decision. They attacked it. A woman who once lived in glass halls was now choosing a life the world refused to respect. And the man she chose wasn't fighting back. He was watching. Because some tests aren't meant to be passed quietly. They're meant to expose everyone else. The news spread faster than Alina expected. Engaged. The word felt unreal when she said it out loud. At the community office, whispers followed her through hallways. Isn't she the one who lived in that mansion? She left everything for a janitor. Must be desperate. Alina kept her head down. She reminded herself why she chose this. Peace, safety, freedom. Daniel, meanwhile, acted unchanged. Same routine, same clothes, same quiet presence. But behind that calm, something was moving. Alina hadn't told her family yet. She waited too long. When she finally did, the silence on the phone hurt more than shouting. A janitor, her mother asked, stunned. After everything you had? Her brother laughed awkwardly. Is this some kind of phase? Alina tried to explain. That Daniel listened. That he never controlled her. That she felt human again. But they didn't hear her. They heard status slipping away. You're throwing your life away, her mother said softly. Alina ended the call with tears streaming down her face. Daniel found her sitting on the stairs outside the building. They think I'm stupid, she whispered. Daniel sat beside her. No, he said calmly. They're afraid. Their relationship grew in silence, not spectacle. They cooked simple meals together. Walked without destinations. Shared stories at night. Daniel talked about growing up with nothing. About learning patience. About watching how power changed people. Alina never noticed how carefully he chose his words. One evening, she asked, "Does it bother you what people say about you?" Daniel smiled faintly. "People only see what they're allowed to," he replied. "That's not my burden." She didn't fully understand. Yet, Victor Hale didn't stay quiet. Court papers arrived one morning. Claims, threats, financial pressure. Alina's hands shook as she read. "He wants to break us," she said. Daniel read the documents calmly. "He wants control," Daniel corrected. "And control hates uncertainty." Victor's message followed shortly after. "You'll crawl back, you always do." For a moment, fear returned. But Daniel took Alina's hands. "He doesn't own you anymore," he said firmly. "And he won't touch you again." There was something in his voice. Something final. At work, Daniel overheard conversations he was never meant to hear. Executives spoke freely around him. Assumed he was invisible. Plans, deals, arrogance. He remembered every word. At night when Alina slept, Daniel checked his phone. Messages stacked up. Numbers, reports, timelines. He replied to none of them. Not yet. The worst moment came unexpectedly. Alina ran into old acquaintances at a restaurant. They recognized her instantly. "Oh my God, Alina," one woman said loudly. "We heard you married maintenance staff." The laughter was instant. Alina froze. Daniel stood beside her, silent. One man leaned closer. "You must really hate luxury." Alina swallowed hard. Daniel placed a gentle hand on her back. And said nothing. Later that night, Alina broke down. "I hate that they see you this way," she cried. Daniel wiped her tears. "Let them," he said softly. "Truth doesn't need defending." Lying in bed one night, Alina whispered, "Why me?" Daniel turned toward her. "Because you chose kindness when you had power," he said. And humility when you lost it. She studied his face. Sometimes, she said slowly, I feel like there's more to you. Daniel smiled, not denying it. Sometimes, he replied, we meet people at the wrong chapter. They planned a small wedding. No media, no luxury, just a registry office and a simple celebration. Victor heard about it through contacts. His reaction was immediate. A smirk. Let her marry her mistake, he told his associates. She'll regret it. Daniel overheard that too. And for the first time, he smiled. A stranger approached Elena outside her office. Be careful, the woman whispered. Victor doesn't lose. Elena felt cold fear again. That night, she confronted Daniel. Are you sure you're ready for this? She asked. He'll never stop. Daniel looked at her steadily. I've been ready my whole life. Those words echoed. On the night before the wedding, Daniel stood alone on the balcony, phone in hand. He finally answered the messages. Proceed, he said quietly. The reveal begins at the ceremony. Inside, Elena slept peacefully, unaware that the world was about to watch her marriage and misunderstand everything. She walked down the aisle barefoot, or at least it felt that way to the world. They all laughed. They all whispered. They all judged. But one man in the crowd didn't see her as broken. One man didn't see a mistake. One man had a secret that would shatter the entire city. And today, the world would learn the cost of mocking someone who gave love without asking for anything in return. Elena woke before sunrise. The city was quiet. Her apartment small, silent, untouched by luxury. She dressed in a simple white dress, nothing extravagant, nothing flashy. Her hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from the weight of judgment she knew awaited her. Daniel knocked softly. Ready, he asked. She nodded. He handed her a bouquet of wildflowers he had picked himself. No silk, no roses, just nature. Elena's chest tightened. It felt pure, honest, real. The small registry office was packed, not with guests, but spectators. Everyone who had laughed. Everyone who had whispered. Everyone who thought they understood her story. Victor was there, of course, dressed impeccably, smiling, like a man who had never lost control. He leaned toward his companion. See, I told you she'd beg me to take her back. Elena felt the weight of their eyes. But Daniel remained calm. Hands steady, eyes forward. As Elena stepped inside, whispers erupted. A janitor. She's ruined herself. How can she marry him? Victor smirked, clearly expecting her to falter. Elena's fingers tightened around Daniel's hand. She glanced up at him. He whispered, your strength is yours, not theirs. That small sentence steadied her. For the first time, she believed it. The officiant began, words flowing through the hall. Daniel's voice was clear, calm, unwavering. I love you, he said. I saw you when no one else did. I trust you when the world doubted. I choose you not for your wealth, your status, or your power, but for your soul. Elena's eyes welled up. When her turn came, her voice shook not from fear but truth. I love you, she said. I chose you when nothing else made sense. I chose you when the world mocked me. I vow to see you as you are forever. The room went silent. Shock hung heavier than air. Daniel reached into his jacket, pulled out a small card, slipped it into Elena's hand discreetly. Check this after the ceremony. The world isn't ready yet. Elena's fingers froze. Her heart pounded. But she did as instructed. Wait. Victor's smile disappeared. He leaned forward, face reddening. This is ridiculous, he shouted. Do you realize what you're doing? Daniel's eyes met his. Calm. Immovable. He did not answer. He simply held Elena's hand tighter. The crowd sensed the tension. Gasps. Whispers. Some tried to intervene. Daniel raised a finger just slightly, and silence returned. Victor's frustration was visible. The world thought they were in control. They weren't. After the vows, Elena followed Daniel to a quiet office inside the building. He handed her the card. Inside were documents, real estate titles, companies, bank statements. Elena's eyes widened. Daniel, this is everything, she whispered. He nodded. Yes. I've been testing the world and us. They mocked kindness, they worshipped status. But you loved me when nothing was visible. Elena sank to a chair, trembling. The weight of years of judgment crashed onto her. And for the first time, she felt free. Victor received a call moments later. His face drained of color. He stepped outside to find Elena and Daniel, now surrounded by their closest supporters, lawyers, friends, media. The whispers turned to gasps. The world learned quickly. The janitor was the owner of multiple companies. Real estate, logistics, and investments. He had disappeared from society, but never from power. Victor had been outplayed by the person he underestimated the most, love. Elena walked down the hall with Daniel, shoulders back, chest high. People stared, some in shock, some in awe. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply walked with dignity. Years of fear and humiliation fell away. She had been poor in their eyes. She had been weak. But she was neither. She was free. By evening, news spread like wildfire. Social media exploded. Who is Daniel Reed? Elena Carter married a billionaire incognito. The janitor story was a lie. Everyone who mocked them had to confront reality. The city realized kindness is stronger than cruelty. Love is stronger than judgment. And appearance is never the truth. That night, Daniel and Elena stood on the balcony of his penthouse, overlooking the city. Do you regret it? He asked softly. Elena shook her head. No, but I will never forget. Daniel smiled. Good, because the next chapter will change more than just our lives. Fireworks exploded in the distance. The city watched. But they didn't know. The real power behind Daniel Reed had yet to be revealed. We didn't drive back to the hotel right away. Margaret took a longer route, the kind that loops through quiet streets and gives your thoughts time to catch up with your body. Emma fell asleep against my shoulder within minutes, her breathing slow and even. I watched the city lights slide past the window and tried to understand what it felt like to no longer be in survival mode. It was disorienting. Relief didn't arrive as joy. It arrived as silence. Finally, I broke it. What else did they take? I asked quietly. Margaret didn't answer right away. She waited until we stopped at a red light, then looked at me, not with anger, not with pity, but with a kind of honesty I hadn't seen before. They took time, she said. Money, trust, options. Then she added the part that made my chest tighten. And they took advantage of the fact that you were raised to doubt yourself. That one landed deep. For most of my life, I'd been taught that discomfort meant I was doing something wrong, that questioning authority, especially parental authority, was selfish, that gratitude was owed even when kindness wasn't given. My parents hadn't just locked a door. They trained me not to knock too loudly. The next week moved quickly. Legal letters, bank reversals, conversations I wasn't required to be part of. Margaret handled it all with quiet precision. She never dramatized, never gloated. She just corrected what had been misdirected. The rental income was frozen, then reclaimed. The lease was terminated. The house on Willow Lane was cleared. One afternoon, she handed me a small envelope. Inside were 2 keys. "They're yours," she said simply. I stared at them. Metal, ordinary, heavy. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. "Live there, own something again." Margaret studied me. "You already know how," she said. "You've been doing more with less for years." The first night back at the house felt unreal. It smelled like fresh paint and lemon cleaner. Sunlight poured through the windows like it had been waiting. Emma ran from room to room, her laughter echoing off bare walls. "This one's mine," she declared, pointing to the smaller bedroom with the crooked closet door. I watched her press her hands against the wall like she was claiming it, and something in my chest finally broke open. That night, after Emma fell asleep on a mattress on the floor, I sat alone in the living room. No sirens, no shelter lights, no whispered reassurances to myself. Just quiet. I didn't cry because I was sad. I cried because I was safe. A month later, the calls started. Blocked numbers, new numbers, voicemails that ranged from apologetic to furious to strategic. My mother didn't ask how Emma was. She asked what Margaret planned to do. My father left one message. "You've humiliated us." I deleted it without responding. Margaret had warned me. "They will try to reframe this as your betrayal," she said. "Don't participate." So I didn't. I focused on routines. School mornings without panic. Dinner without counting dollars. Sleep without fear of locks clicking behind me. I returned to work, not desperate, not trapped, but steady. And for the first time, I enrolled in the next step of my nursing program without calculating what I'd have to sacrifice to afford it. 6 months later, life was boring. Gloriously, beautifully boring. Emma walked to school with a friend from next door. She taped her drawings to her wall like a gallery curator. She slept through the night. Sometimes she'd pause in the hallway, touch the wall, and smile to herself like she was checking that it was still real. Margaret visited on Sundays. She brought pastries and claimed they were too much for one person, though we both knew better. Emma saw through it immediately. "You just want to see the house," she told her one morning. Margaret paused, then smiled. "Yes," she said, "I do." One afternoon, while Emma played outside, I finally asked the question that had been sitting quietly in me for months. "Do you regret it?" I asked, cutting them off, doing it publicly. Margaret considered this. "No," she said, "I regret trusting them." Then she looked at me. "But I don't regret protecting you." That was the moment I understood something important. Strength doesn't always look like endurance. Sometimes it looks like intervention. I never heard from my parents again directly. Through extended family, I learned pieces. Debt surfaced, relationships cooled, invitations stopped coming. Turns out when money disappears, so does influence. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt done. One evening, as I tucked Emma into bed, she asked a question that stopped me cold. "Mom," she said softly, "are we poor anymore?" I sat on the edge of her bed. "No," I said carefully, "but more importantly, we're secure." She thought about that. Secure means no one can take our house, right? Yes, I said, that's exactly what it means. She smiled and rolled over, already drifting. I stayed a moment longer, watching her breathe, and promised myself something. I would never teach her to confuse love with control. The house on Willow Lane doesn't make us special. It makes us stable. And that changed everything.